Alright, hey everybody, I'm back at you with another CNC video. If you don't know who I am, my name's Ben, and today I'm going to be going over a simpler CNC project. Um, you probably have seen a lot of people that will take different states and different countries, and they will use a CNC machine to cut these out because it's a lot better than using a scroll saw to do it, which is the way before CNC that you would do it, or you would use a scroll saw to cut your first one, and then if you wanted to do a lot of them, you would use that as a template and use a pen router to get a bunch of them out if you had to make more for somebody. But these days we have newer technology, so we don't have to do that. Um, so the reason why I'm doing this one today is I've got a friend of mine that she lives in Colombia, which is in South America, and the kid's been having a real hard time. She's 21 years old, and her mom just passed away, and really sorry to hear that about her and everything else. But it caused me to get in communication with her, and so that brings me into Italy. So she was going to school in Italy there for a little while, and kind of a strange thing. So we met. Actually, she was a tutor at the chemistry lab at the school that I went to, and it's amazing how people will, go different paths where you meet them, and you certainly I wouldn't. I would have never thought that. She would have gone across the ocean there to go to school. Would never have thought that, when first meeting her. Anyways, so about, oh gosh, it's been what, 2, maybe 3 years since then. And so that when she was found out that she was going to school, the wood shop that I worked at, we actually had to do Italy for a customer. And I, made one, and the first one wasn't satisfactory, but also had to make two of these boards. So one of those boards was supposed to be extra, and I had tried to make arrangements. I'd gotten in touch with her, told her about it and everything, and was trying to make arrangements to get her that board, and it just kind of didn't happen. And I told her that I promised I would, and so you might hear me talking about this and wondering, well, what in the world is so hard? You could probably mail somebody a cutting board. Well, this is the thing. By that point, she had made it to Italy, and you cannot ship wood products overseas because they're agricultural product, and you've got to make arrangements with customs, and that can cause you all sorts of rigmarole problems to get the product over there to them, and that's why it never got sent. But it just kind of got me on that one. When you make a promise, you kind of need to keep it. So she has informed me that she's coming back. So she's going to be visiting Jacksonville. I guess she's over there to see some friends, and I will make sure that this is ready to go for her when she gets here. So um, here's what we're doing today. So if anybody has ever done this before, taking an image and then using bitmap trace to do this, there's not really a whole lot to it. I mean, you always want to choose black and white with your bitmap trace. Generally speaking, you want to, and you can adjust where the vector is going to get at. So in this case, the lighter color is good. We preview it, and if you notice, it's got a lot of this type thing going on, and it gives us a lot of vectors, but we're going to have to go with it given what we have, and we're going to hit apply, and it's just made our vectors. What I like to do, some people like to keep the vector and move it out of the way. generally I delete them most of the time when I do them. So whenever you do this, it always groups the vectors, which is really, you just got to remember to ungroup them when you do it. And hopefully when that happens with these, your vector will be all one piece. So in this case it is, which is really, really good. And then what you got to do is you can boost this up a little bit. So what I'm going to use is transform object. And what's handy to do is if you see the size that you got here, I like to have a little piece of paper, and if I can find a pencil that is not torn up, I will use that to write this value down. Another thing you can do is you can also use sticky notes to do that, but given that the way that I'm recording this video, it's it's way easier for me to just write it down. Okay, so I've got my measurement written down, and I'm going to just change that to 8, hit apply, and now I can come in here and I can get rid of all these vectors that the software has created. Okay, so now we've cleaned up our vectors, and now we can take and we can resize this vector back to the size that I just had it at. And really the sizing of the vector doesn't matter quite so much, but I'm keeping it within object boundaries, because most of the time, like, so when I did the size of this project, I want to bring that up now because this is kind of important. Is you have job size and position, and you can see here I've got it set to 20 by 11. Okay, a lot of the times, like, and I've made all 50 United States, and I've done a couple of other countries besides these two, and I've had days that I've had to do a run of a lot of these. So when you're going to be doing these, if you're doing manufacturing, you're probably going to have a certain set number of blanks for these states, all depending on what you're going to do. And you're usually going to have a specific size that you're going to stay with. So in the case that what I was doing is we were having hardwood blanks that were glued up like cold mortars, and they're like an inch here, 2 inches here, another inch there, and they were symmetrical pattern. Had a whole lot of them and had to cut out. So that's why we're going to stick within the size that we got there. Really, if it was just a project where I wasn't real worried about it, I would just, it wouldn't even matter about the size of the project, just as long as it would match up with the blank that I was putting on the machine. So now we're going to do the same thing for Italy. A really cool trick too that I just learned, I did not know this. I mean, I knew you could print from Vcarve Pro, and I'll have it mentioned right now since I'm talking about it, is you can actually print stuff out using Vcarve Pro. Now, like if you look, like right now, if we print, it's just gonna show that there. But if you had the object size set, what you could do is you could take this vector right here, and you can export vectors, which is a handy feature if you need to move things to thing. But you can export these to SVG file, and when you make that SVG file, you can open it up in Microsoft Edge. So like, let's say you've got a plotter and you set the job size of this blank. Well, let's just say for a printer, well, 8.5 by 11. You can set the job size to 8.5 by 11 and draw a rectangle around the outside. And I'll just go really quickly here, and we'll draw a rectangle. All right, you see where it made my rectangle here? So you can export this. We'll just go on that. Well, we'll do that here in a minute. You can export this, and it'll make a file, and you can open it up Microsoft Edge, and you can file print this design, and you remove your margins and make sure it's 100% to scale, and it will give you the exact dimensions of what's in this program, which is absolutely fantastic. And what's cool about that is if you have other designs, you can use them as a template. But this design is probably something that I'm going to be printing off, and I'm probably going to be doing it on the scroll saw since it's something that I can, get my hands on relatively quickly. So now we're going to move on to doing Italy here. And we're just going to apply. And now we've got our Italy shape. Move our picture over here. Now, as you can see, we got some stuff that we got to clean up. So we got to ungroup the vectors. Okay. Now, as it stands right now, there's a lot of these vectors that aren't, perfect. So important things to keep in mind, and this is a good example of one that, if we were to go and do these in a manufacturing shop, there is no way that you could get away with these shapes and these divots being in here. So we're going to go on ahead and address that. And the easiest way to do that is go into node edit mode. And what you will find yourself doing quite a bit is taking and deleting these points and fixing them. So like any objects that are just too aggravating to deal with, we'll just get rid of them. So now what I would do here is just go ahead and put an arc in here. Make it go something like that, and we will take and we will join these vectors with a smooth curve, and now we'll go in the node edit mode and insert a point, and we're going to make it a smooth point. Well, it won't let me do it. Try this one here. It's interesting. That's very interesting. Huh. Very interesting indeed. For whatever reason, it's not wanting me to smooth those points out. Or it's not letting me, rather. Huh. Interesting. Not sure why. Okay, so there, yeah, now the option here is letting me smooth that out. So, as you can see, this is a very straight line. I mean, which is okay. I mean, something like this you generally don't want, but the idea is you want to come in here and get all these hard points. That's too much. Get all these hard points out of this vector, because it just, with the router bit, you could, well, most people that do this, that you could go on ahead and just take this pattern that I've got, go on ahead, take the router, tell it to make a cut, and everything would be fine. Let's see here. Got somebody calling me up that I'm actually surprised is calling me. Let's see, we'll address this call. So, as I was saying, you'll smooth this point, And you always, if you can go through this entire piece and round all these edges, it'll just machine so much better. Because if you have these straight points here, all it's going to do is it's going to leave a jagged edge, and and if you're selling these to people to make money, which was the situation where I was working, this is what the owner was trying to do, was trying to make a profit. You don't want to make a bunch of pieces that have got that going on, because it just gives something customers to complain about. So now, you have this crazy Duflaci part of Italy, going on here. If it was something that was really large, I would say leave it in. But what we're going to do is we are going to get this part out too. Um, just cut our vectors. Yeah, and the thing of it is with this, maybe if you are, doing, these for work and people are asking you about them, as long as it's like a generalized shape, you're probably going to be doing pretty good. I haven't really heard of people really having serious complaints about how perfect that these are. And I mean, really, another thing I got to say about it too is if they are complaining about how perfect they are, they need to try making them. Because then they would understand. Oh, hey, wait a second, it's not as easy as you would think. Even if you have a machine like a CNC machine that will help make it easy. Um, like I was saying, back in the old days, they didn't have these machines to do this, and you had to do them by hand. And a lot of the people, like if it was a guy that was working in a shop doing this, he would not be sitting here. He would not make these small little cuts. Now, there is an exception to that. Maybe if it was somebody that was doing something that needed to be accurate. Maybe if it was like a one-time piece or something, they would do them with a high level of detail. But I mean, generally speaking, they're not going to. You're gonna make some amends just to make it a little bit easier on yourself. So that, well, what am I getting at? When you're doing woodworking, you don't want to have all your stuff that's so difficult to do that you're not going to enjoy working on it. Now, you do get better at it and making difficult cuts, but that's just, something you do as time goes on. Some people like the difficult cuts, they like the challenge, so they do it. Not everybody does. Some people like things to be simple and move on. Okay, so now obviously I'm not going to, sit here and do this for every single piece, but I mean, that was just a real good example. And yeah, I'm going to go ahead and fix this too because this is really bothering me. So this here, I'm going to just insert a point. Insert a point. We're going to cut the vector and cut the vector. Get rid of that. There's another thing too. That, part of this is, I mean, that's like too small to cut on the CNC machine. And plus, if it's made out of wood, you have that plane of weakness there. You run a higher risk of, breaking the wood. Um, if you were doing this out of metal, then it probably would be fine. But we're going on the assumption base that we're using wood. But you can even do it with plastic now that I think about it. And still have really good results. We're going to expand this out. And we're going to do that. So, um, if you're going to be milling these shapes, I would suggest you use a spiral down cut bit to do so. And the way that we would do that is you would have to use a 1/4 inch bit to make this cut. And with these intricate shapes where you've got a lot of movement, I can tell you that it is going to be preferable if you go at a slower speed to do these. So what I would do is, let's see, something like this is probably going to be 5/8 thickness. All right, let's see here. All right, so we're doing cutting speeds. If you did these at 100, I'd probably get away with doing them at 125 inches a minute. Going on the basis if you have a machine with NEMA 34 motors, this is what you could get away with doing, and it would mill these pieces, pretty good. My suggestion is, plunge rate. Everything else here is fine. I like to mention ramps because they are fantastic. So let's see here. We're gonna set up these and pick a spot. Okay. All right. So yeah, using these as ramps should have them fixed up here. So when you're putting your tabs in your pieces, I tried to pick spaces where you could do these and you can get to them with sandpaper or some sort of cutter. So if you notice you're in here and you're up here, you don't want to put a tab that's right here. Otherwise, you're going to have trouble, fixing that and making it look good. So I just put them in a place where they're evenly spaced apart and they'll hold the work. So let's see here, and then this one works likewise. So now if you cut it out, it'll look good. It'll look like Italy, and it'll look how it's supposed to look. So the same thing goes here too. Basically, all the same steps that I just did there, we can apply the same to our Colombia board, and we can add the tabs in, trying to make sure that you pick a spot where they don't, interrupt. That's another thing too. If you have like a real skinny piece up here, you don't want to put a tab up here, because what'll happen is you'll be sanding with it, and the vibration from the sander can actually break these small parts. So you just want to keep that in mind as you're doing it. And we will go on ahead and finish that out and calculate. And we're going to preview all our tool paths. And okay. So in case, for anybody that doesn't know, this job is not set to the right thickness. So all that stuff that we see is not right. Change our thickness. We're going to reset all tool paths. Okay. I'm not sure why, but the tabs didn't quite show. So for our we can double click on it, and well, it disappeared. So I guess if you have tabs in there, it'll make the piece disappear. But this cutting this out kind of gives us a 3D view of what the board will look like, and that is how you cut out Italy. And there is one thing too. I was mentioning Mariana there earlier in the video. I guess a lot of the times if you have a friend and you have something, they're a friend because they'll tell you about things, and you'll listen to that person, and they won't try to take your experience and then start talking about themselves and the respect. because when you're in a situation and you're having a hard time, that's kind of the last thing really you want to hear. But I guess since it's been a little bit of time, I will tell you this, and my perspective of having loved ones die on you. I guess around the time that I met her, it had probably been about a year ago, and not to make this anything about myself or let it all out there. Uh, I had an uncle that I was staying with, and he had gotten sick, went to the hospital. Oh gosh, I think this was February about 3 years ago. Probably it's been longer than that now. And he asked me to stay with him. At the time, things were not going well at all. I mean, things were not going good, really not going good. Um, he, as a matter of fact, just before I ever started doing any CNC stuff, he had me staying there with him, and his living conditions were pretty bad, and I helped fix a lot of that stuff. And I guess what I'm getting at, other family members weren't. I mean, they were there, but they weren't really involved. Not like I was. I was doing the most for him. Me and my dad were doing the most for him out of the other ones. And even though it wasn't that much, it was still more than the rest of them were doing. Um, and gosh, about 2 months of that, he had passed away there. And I guess an interesting thing is he told me, a couple of times before that, he says about April of such and such week, you won't have to come up here no more. So he knew that he knew he was leaving. But in the aftermath of his death, it turned into a big mess. With the state and a few things that he had there at his house. And I guess what I'm getting at is I just remember being frustrated about it, and I had a family member that had told me that it is going exactly the way that it should be going. And I guess for you, I know that things probably are difficult, but that is something that helped me out. So just you could take it or leave it for whatever that is, but that was immensely helpful because it helped me kind of accept the situation. But yeah, anyhow, just wanted to tell you that. And yeah, if anybody, this is pretty much it for this video. But if anybody likes what we got going on here, I can do more of these. And if anybody has any questions or suggestions or comments, feel free to let me know. Thank you.